In this tutorial, we're going to look at transactions involving AR account customers and how those transactions might differ depending on the type of customer that we're dealing with. One benefit of setting up and using AR accounts in Precise Point of Sale is that you can apply different pricing to specific customers. So for example, you might wish to offer your regular trade customers better pricing than your occasional walk-in customers. So one price for one and then one price for somebody else. You don't want your trade customers getting a discount one day and then a lesser or perhaps no discount the next day, depending purely on who's serving them. As we've discussed in other videos, consistency is key to providing a positive customer experience. And when it comes to things like pricing, the good news is that it can all be automated using Precise Point of Sale. Let's take a closer look now at how the price lists work and how the transaction process might differ for cash customers versus account customers. So I have my point of sale screen open here, and the first thing I will do is I'll click on the customer button. And what this will do is it will bring up customer information. Now by default, it defaults to a POS cash customer. So this is the walk off the street kind of customer who's just buying sort of sporadically. But let's say it's a trade customer that comes to my counter and I have an account set up for that customer. So I'll type in their account name, let's say Addison in this case, and then when I click customer detail, you can see in Precise Point of Sale that I can now make use of a whole bunch of information, delivery addresses, account information, so available credit to them, the balance on their account, and I also have a tab called defaults. And when I select defaults and look on the right hand side, I can see that customer Addison is privy to a particular price class or a price list, which we've called price to trade. Now this information, in fact all of the information from the customer screen at this point is coming from Epicor. So I'm just going to go back a step and dive into Epicor on the top left here and show you what's going on. So at the top here, I'm dealing with the customer maintenance screen in Epicor, and I can type in Addison, and that will bring up Addison's details in Epicor. And if I go across to billing and price lists, I can see that this is where the trade pricing, a price list is assigned to their customer account. Okay, but let's talk a little bit about these price lists because you can have multiple of them configured in Epicor and you can assign them as needed. So looking at the bottom left-hand screen here, if I do a search for my price lists, and I'm in price list maintenance screen at the moment, I click search, and right now I can see all of the different price lists that are configured in Epicor. Okay, now we know that customer Addison, our trade customer, is privy to price to trade. So let's have a look at this. I click on price to trade. And then I'm just going to search for a basic part that I'm going to sell him. So in Epicor, let's look at 00C2. And what the screen is telling me is that for anybody who's privy to price to trade pricing, the component 00C2 should be valued at $385. That's what he's going to have to pay. All right. Now if I looked at a different price list, that price may be different. But because price list 2 is assigned to Addison, this is the price that we should see if we're selling him component 00C2. So let's look at this in practice now. So I open my POS screen, POS starts, customer, Addison, OK. So now we're ready to begin. If I sell them 00C2, I can see quite clearly that that comes up at $3.85 as we expected. But if I was to change the customer now, just to prove the point, and I was to go back to our walk-in POS cash customers and select OK, you can see that the price for that same component is actually $4.25. It's more expensive. Okay, so this is a situation where these different price lists are being applied because I have a different price list applied to Addison as I do for a regular walk-in customer. Okay, so $3.85. Let's assume that's all I'm purchasing today. I move across to the payment screen, and this is one of the other key differences between an account customer and a POS cash customer, is that you can assign different payment options depending on those customers. So for example, with Addison, we have the option to purchase all of this stuff on account, right? Now this may not be an option available to walk-in customers because they may not have an account with you. So let's say in this occasion, Addison is going to pay for all of this on account. We'll click OK and complete the sale. Now typically for a cash customer, when we complete the sale, we'll now be presented with a thermal docket printout with the details on it. But because Addison is recognised as a different kind of customer, he's a trade customer, we've actually configured Precise Point of Sale to print out a different kind of document for him. So he is in fact receiving now an A4 landscape, and in fact it could even be multiple copies, but the point is we can have different things occurring based on the type of customer that we're dealing with. And as we have the same option for cash customers, we can email these receipts rather than printing them if we prefer. So hopefully you can see there, by setting up and using AR account customers, we are now afforded a whole range of options that we may not use on cash customers. Better pricing, different price lists, more options or different options for payment, and different documentation to print out based on the needs of the customer and the organisation. So yet another way to deal with customers in Precise Point of Sale. So once our transaction has completed, the data will sync through to Epicor. Now we can use configuration within Precise Point of Sale to control how regularly that information flows through, but ultimately the data is going to be visible either in Precise Point of Sale or even in Epicor if you choose to view it there instead. And we're actually in Epicor right now, and I've opened the sales order tracker, and since our last transaction was to the customer Addison, I can use the search feature to locate the transaction and open it within Epicor. So I click on sales order, and under customer I can enter Addison and then click search. And what I'm presented with now is a list of all of the transactions that exist within Epicor against that customer Addison. And now it's just a case of selecting the relevant transaction. And what you can see now is that certain information appears. So I can see, for example, under the summary tab, I can see who it was sold to, I can see the ship to information. Importantly, I can see that the transaction is now closed. I can see what was sold to Addison, when it was sold to them, and the price that it was sold for. And using these different tabs, I can see more information. So if I click on header, for example, I can look at the detail and see bill to information. I can go across to the salesperson tab and I can see who sold that particular item to them and what the various splits may be if there was multiple salespeople involved. I can go to the order totals tab and I can see a breakdown of the total costs, including how much what various charges were incorporated, any discounting that was involved. And importantly, if I go across to the comments section now, I can see that I'm presented with a comment that tells us the location of the transaction, the station within that location that the transaction was run through, and that transaction ID number. And this is important, of course, because it gives us a very clear indication of exactly where this transaction took place, right down to the station that was used to process that transaction. So plenty of information there. And once again, that extensive integration that's going on between Precise Point of Sale and Epicor is such that you can use Point of Sale as your ultra-fast, streamlined system for performing your counter sales, while that integration is constantly running in the background, feeding the information from Point of Sale back into Epicor, but without the user necessarily needing to be in Epicor, and that's the point. Now, as I said before, should integration be disrupted, for example, you lose internet connectivity, or maybe you're transacting in an offline environment, perhaps you're at a trade show or somewhere where you don't have internet, this transactional data that I'm talking about, or this information, is going to save locally on your device, and then that will automatically sync and update Epicor once a connection has been re-established.